What's up guys, Shuki here. Today we are going to be looking at two Pro controllers that have come out this year. The first one is from Nacon, the Nacon Revolution Pro Unlimited here on my left. And then on the right we have the Astro C40. Both of these controllers came out recently here within the last month or so. And I want to compare them today so you can kind of use your best judgment and see which controller is best for you. So let's go on and hop on in. We're going to talk about the features and pricing and software and button layout and everything. So we're just going to lay it all out there in comparison, and then you can make an educated choice on which controller you want to get for yourself. I want to cut in here, just make sure you check out all my videos on these controllers. I have reviews, settings, things like that, but also I just uploaded a video about this controller because on mine the right analog stick is tilted to the left a little. It's a bit of a manufacturer's defect, but the controller does still work perfectly, so I am going to go ahead and compare them still, but just as a heads up, definitely check that out also. Alright, starting out with pricing and availability. The Nacon Revolution Unlimited controller is currently only available in Europe, and it probably is only going to be available in Europe as with the other Nacon controllers. So if you are not there, you will have to import it like I did. It will run you about $150 to $175, so just translate that into whatever currency for the country you're in, plus shipping. So it costed me about, I want to say $175 after shipping to get it imported from PlayAsia, which I'll put the link below as to where I got this one from. As far as the Astro controller, currently it's only available in America. This one will run you about $200. I believe the Astro controller, Astro is planning on releasing it in other countries, so stay tuned for that. If not, maybe check out some websites that like Amazon that can import it into the country you're in. So that's going to be the difference in pricing. The Nacon should cost you a little bit cheaper than the Astro controller. Alright, now we are going to go over what each controller comes with, starting with the Nacon. So of course with the Nacon Revolution Pro controller, you're going to get the controller. We'll go over the layout of the controllers here in a bit. You're going to get some instructions and stickers and such. You are going to get a hard case, a pretty nice hard case with the Nacon logo on it that will fit the controller, your USB cable, your customization, and your dongle. Speaking of all those things, you will get a braided USB-C cable for the controller, which is very nice. You're also going to have the dongle. You're going to have a big dongle. This controller does have a big dongle on it, but that's going to plug into your PS4. You're also going to have, before I forget, a cleaning cloth, so you can kind of clean it off if it gets dirty. And then you're going to have a little case here with your weights. So you have different weight options for the controller, if my camera will focus. And then you have thicker and thinner shafts for the analog sticks. You can change those out. And then you're going to have both concave and convex stick tips. So you can change those out there. So that's going to be what comes with the Nacon controller. Moving on to the Astro. Let's just make a mess over here. So of course the Astro is going to come with the controller, obviously. We have an instruction manual, which actually has a lot more information than Nacon's, but you can get both online also. You're going to have another hard shell case with the Astro logo on it. In that case, you'll have your USB cable. Mine's not folded up right now. I was actually using the controller. And you'll have storage for that. You'll have your tool, which we'll talk about in a bit. You can actually change the layout with a tool and screw it down, which is kind of nice. You have your dongle, which is a smaller dongle than we saw on the Nacon. And then we have some different stick options. So instead of having slimmer and thicker shafts, you're actually going to have taller and shorter sticks. And you're going to have the concave and convex options. So that's going to be a difference in the controllers that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So that's what they come with. Let's go ahead and, I guess speaking of the shafts and stuff, let's go ahead and talk about what the difference is in the controllers kind of physically. With the Nacon Revolution Unlimited, you are going to have a stick layout similar to an Xbox controller where the analog sticks are not on the same level. You're going to have one higher than the other. Some people like this, some people don't. I prefer it because it makes it easier for me to hold with bigger hands. But I mean, there's no right or wrong way. On the back of the controller, which is one thing everyone's going to be looking at, you do have four buttons that you can program to any other button on the controller. And I like to use my face buttons back there, but you use them with your middle finger and your ring finger. And yeah, it's pretty nice having the four buttons. You do have volume controls, you have different profiles, a computer mode. The triggers are nice, the R buttons are nice, the sticks are nice. I like the big buttons that it has here, big face buttons, and the D-pad feels good. You can use the software to change it from a 4-way D-pad to an 8-way. And of course you have your standard buttons, PlayStation, you got your trackpad, options, and share. The sticks can be changed. You can have concave or convex. You can actually change the thickness of the controller stick. So if you want a thicker one, you can try that. And what I've been liking, I know it's kind of a weird customization option, but what I've been liking is having a thicker stick for movement and a slimmer one for aiming. So that's kind of what I've been leaning towards, and that's what's kind of been working for me. And obviously you can tweak little settings in the software, which we'll look at later. The other thing is, on this controller, you can change the weight of the controller. You just pop the handles off, or the grips off, pop out the weight, and you can do no weight. You can put a different size weight in. It does have 10 grams, 14 grams, and 16 grams that you can use. So that's going to be it for that controller. So the main benefits of this one are the 4 back buttons. But it does not have manual trigger stops, but you can set them up in the software. With the Astro controller, you're going to have a little bit more as far as customization, if I can get this open and film at the same time. So it does come with the screwdriver that we talked about, and that is to take these screws out and get the face plate off. So give me just a second. Alright, and that's just going to pop right off, and that's actually going to be, it's nice because first of all the screws don't fall out, so just a reminder there, you won't be able to lose those. But if you like a PlayStation layout, you can swap these. If you like the Xbox layout like me, you can swap these. And if you want to be weird, which I did a video on, you could do two of the, if I can get this one out, you can do two of the sticks over here and the D-pad over here. Not sure why you would, but it works. Alright, so let's put those back. And then once you're done with that, you just screw them in. I'll do that here in a second. The sticks, they do pop out. And instead of having, like I said, instead of having thicker ones and slimmer ones, you can actually change the height, which I think is a little nicer. So if you like a shorter stick on the left and a longer one on the right, you can do that. You can have them the same size. You can have concave, convex. So you do have a little bit more options with your sticks on the Astro controller. And as far as the sticks go, you do have 2 shorts and a long of each kind, concave and convex. So you have 2 shorts and a long of concave. There's a short, and a long. And the same thing with, with convex, and the same thing with concave. You're going to have short, and long. So definitely some nice options there. One thing I do want to point out, now that we have the controller back together, we do have a speaker on the C40 controller, so it can use the speaker function from the PS4. We did not see that on the Nacon controller, so just one little difference there. The face buttons are smaller, but they still feel great. D-pad feels great. All the other buttons feel great. We have a headset port. We don't have volume controls like we saw on the Nacon controller, so that's one thing we're missing there. We also only have 2 back buttons on this one, so something to think about when you're looking for a Pro controller. It is nice having 4 back buttons, but you might be able to get away with just the 2. As you see here, we have some physical trigger stops, which will stop the trigger about 40-50% of the way. We also have software ones as well, so if you only want to use software, you only want to use physical trigger stops, you can. You can use both also if you're running into issues with which I did another video on earlier. Up top, we got the wired and wireless mode. Give me some focus here, please, camera. And then we have 2 profiles. So this controller has 2 profiles. The Nacon's going to have 4, so just something else to think about. And then the triggers and the buttons, everything else feels great on this controller, just like the Nacon. As far as the size and weight, I'd say they're about the same size physically. The Astro does feel a bit thicker, and I think it's just because of how thick the grips are, but I could be wrong. The Astro is actually heavier than the Nacon with the heaviest weights in the Nacon. So the Astro is a heavy controller, which I like. I like heavy controller, but they both have a great weight to them. But I just did want to point out that the Astro is a bit heavier. And like I said, they're about the same size, same feel. They both feel great. They both have awesome build quality. They both feel like you paid for a pro controller. Okay, so let's talk about the software for these controllers. So here's the Nacon Revolution Unlimited software when you plug in your controller. This is the first screen you'll see, or you'll see a screen asking you to plug it in if it's not plugged in. The top we have the battery life. Over here we have a PS4 mode, the PC mode, and updates. Updates is where you're going to update the firmware for the controller or the dongle. So we're going to actually jump into PS4 mode, as that's what we've mainly been using this on. So first page you're going to come to, you got your profile. You can make new profiles, you can edit them, you can download and share profiles, which is nice. If you're a little confused about what settings to use, you can try out someone else's. We also have some general settings that we're going to look at that kind of rule over all the profiles. So let's take a look at that. So over here on the left, we have the vibration. So you can set the how strong or soft the vibration is on both the left and right side of the controller. We have backlight options over here, as well as the light for the area around the right stick. You can change the colors for each section. So definitely a lot of options for customization with that. You have your 4 profiles. The Nacon does hold 4 profiles on the controller. And if you click here, you can edit the name of the one that you have. And then you can actually click this to edit it. You're going to come to this page first. This is going to be an overview of all the settings you have in this profile. And then from there, we're going to click this. This is going to be our left stick. Over here, we have our curvature of the stick, I want to say. And this is, it's a little hard to explain, but you got your small, your medium, and your large movements. And I've been asked a lot about this, and I understand it a bit, but it's kind of hard to explain. So maybe I can kind of get into it later. We have our sensitivity. You can kind of have higher or lower sensitivity for the controller. So kind of test out what works best for you in the game you're playing. You can reverse the Y-axis, which you can do in a lot of games, but if the game doesn't have it and you want it, you can do that here. And down here we have the dead zone, which I wouldn't recommend setting it over 5, but you can set a number between 0 and 99. It's kind of the percentage of where you can move your joystick without actually moving the joystick. So it's just kind of goes with sensitivity a bit, but so that's kind of it. And then you're gonna go here. You're gonna have the same options for the right stick. So that's what this option is here. So you've got your sensitivity and dead zone and everything for that stick. Over here, we can modify our button layout. So you can kind of program whatever button or whatever you want here. And to do that, you just click the one you want to change, press the button on the controller to what you want to change it to, and that's it. So pretty self-explanatory. You got your settings for the D-pad. You can change it to 4 or 8 way. You've got your joysticks. You can change them from have the right one be left, left be right, and vice versa. Don't know what that would be good for, but if you do, let me know. Moving right along, we've got our triggers. So like I said before, we have software trigger stops. So I have them set to 50%. So if I press the trigger down 50% of the way, it's going to count as me pressing it all the way down. So that's basically what we're doing here. We do have a test area, which is nice. So you can kind of test out the settings you've changed on the controller and see how things are performing. Make sure everything's right before playing. And you can also test out the vibration. So that's going to be about it for the software on the Nacon. We do have the firmware update, which we talked about, that you can check here for the dongle and the controller and the software. So let's move on to the Astro. Alright, so this is the main screen of the Astro software. So you got your 2 profiles here, as this controller has 2. And yeah, we're going to go into Goshuki 2, because that's the one I kind of use for these, because I don't want to mess up my main profile. Alright, so once we log in, the first thing we're going to see is the button mapping. So we can go ahead and go in there and map the buttons. We got a gear up top to update your software. You can see if your controller and your software is up to date as well. So back to the button mapping, you can basically see what you can change here. So basically, almost any button can be programmed to anything else. We can change the back buttons. That's going to be the main one. So you do get a drop down on this one rather than having to press the button you want on the controller. So that's a little different. Moving right along, we got the sticks. So the sticks are a little different, and looks like we got some twitching over here. So one thing is, if you have stick drift, you can come in here and see that there's a red dot here, and you can kind of reset the controller. I did a video on that before. I'm gonna flip the sticks real quick. Okay, I fixed it. So it just needed to be flicked real quick. But if you are having it, you can reset the controller, and I do have another video on that. But you can also change the sensitivity of the sticks here. Again, something I'd have to kind of go into later because it's a little complicated and really hard to explain, but here it is where you can change it and kind of mess with it. All right, and then we can get into the triggers. So this is where you set the software trigger stops, which can work in combination with the hardware trigger stops that the controller does have. So this is where you would set those. I do have another video on that if you're interested. Check out my channel. Astro being the awesome headset company they have been for years, there are a lot of audio options for this controller. So we do have an equalizer, so you can change that, the highs and the lows and the mids. We also have some microphone settings, mic out. We have the side tones, and then we have the volume for the speaker here, which this one does have over the Nacon. However, it doesn't have the physical controls for the volume, as we talked about earlier. While the Astro does beat the Nacon in audio settings, it's a little lacking on the effects. You can set the rumble intensity and the brightness of the little LED on the controller, but I mean, that's going to be good enough for most people. Gameplay on both controllers was great. Even with the Nacon having a kind of defective stick, it still worked perfectly otherwise. That's why if you check out the other video, I didn't even really know it was really much of a problem, but otherwise, everything worked great, both wired and wirelessly. I didn't notice any input lag on either controller. And all the buttons worked great, back buttons, everything. Everything was perfect. So, other than my aim being terrible from having a camera and a big ring light in front of me, the controllers work great. So, I mean, I definitely recommend both of them. Don't let the issue I had with the Nacon get you down. It was a one-off cosmetic issue only with my controller, and I'm working to get it exchanged. So make sure to check out my video about that if you have concerns. Alright, coming to the end of the video, I do want to give one last thing about each controller. Since they're both great options, I'm not going to go back and go over everything we talked about each controller, all the pluses and minuses, not going to recap like that. This video's gone long enough. So with the Astro controller, I do want to say one major downside about this one is only having the 2 back buttons. Otherwise, excellent controller. With the Nacon controller, I'd say the big downside on that one is the lack of physical trigger stops. So otherwise, excellent controller. Very small downsides, nothing really to get worked up about. They're both really great controllers. So definitely weigh their pros and cons that we talked about here when you're making your decision. And if I left anything out, I'm pretty sure I covered everything, but if I left anything out, ask me down below in the comments. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and go Shuki out.